At this point, I actually can't keep up with the negative allegations against Mamdani. I literally have read so many different reports, each and every one of them being a report that should destroy somebody's political career, and yet somehow they keep on making this guy stronger. I'm not even going to touch upon the Jews and the Israelis who are supporting Mamdani, the people out there who think that due to their religious values of socialism and whatnot, which is just a disgrace in and of itself in a statement, they think that believing and supporting and voting in somebody to New York City who is a blatant, not just an anti-Semite, Muslim lover, and in theory that would be kind of okay, but it extends into all the other things that come with radical Islam, like terrorism loving, a socialist who's involved in the DSA, you know, that student, Democrat Student for America organization, I think it's Democratic Student, which is literally a Trojan horse. Under the guise of being Democrats, they're trying to take over America with communism, and they have succeeded in figuring out how to take over elections. Ilhan Omar, you know, Rashida Tlaib, the squad, the people who have successfully been voted in, they're now trying to take over New York City under this kind of lie, this ruse, this thing that Islam, anti-Muslim is the number one hate in New York, and all of the people like Andrew Cuomo, and they all hate Islam, and the Muslims are suffering so much in New York, and we have to fight for them. When, in the words of Matt Walsh, like, since when has Islam ever been a top issue for voting in New York? It shouldn't be. And just FYI, if you want to look at the statistics for New York hate, is anti-Jewish hate is number one, and like anti-Muslim hate is like number 10 or something like that on the list. It's like not at any way the top one. And yesterday 100,000 people came out to support Bernie Sanders, obviously the revolting Jewish socialist who's supporting Mamdani himself, AOC. They're all coming out together to kind of celebrate this socialist takeover. And I just have to ask you guys a simple question. Move away from the fact that this is a Ugandan who really, at this point, you guys should really be seriously considering revoking his citizenship. A guy who blatantly supports Hamas, who hates Jews, we know that, who is not even trying at this point to hide the fact that he is a literal plant of radical Islam into New York, just like we've seen across the UK, just we're seeing now in Ireland with this new person who's come to Ireland. She's like new president or prime minister, I don't remember which one they have. She's a massive lefty and anti-Israel person. That's really scary for Ireland, like petrifying. But you have a person 20 years after 9/11, when Islam has tried to take down and rearrange your skies and literally change the city forever, you're now voting in this type of person. I won't even get into Curtis Silva and what he's doing, just how obnoxious it is that he's not dropping out. And I don't think that Cuomo's a good option at all. I think it's revolting. Like, I just don't like that man. But Mamdani, have you all lost your plot? I know how many of you guys are afraid. I understand the fear, but look at where we've come to. Look how far down the line it's gotten. And if you're not out there literally knocking on people's doors in New York to convince them to not vote for Mamdani, to vote for Cuomo, then you're part of the problem. If you're just sitting around being very, very scared, but not actively trying to figure something that you can do to try and squash this, then you are enabling this. And I know that's an uncomfortable truth because we all want to believe that from our homes we can just be activists, but it's not actually true. Sometimes you have to go and you have to do more, and you have to literally get on the front lines and fight for the things that you care about. That's why my husband's been at war for 2 years. Not because it's comfortable for me. It is not enjoyable at all, but because I understand it and I recognize that the safety of my land is my number one priority. The safety of my home, for my children, for my future children, for my family. That is the top priority. And for that, I will be uncomfortable. You guys need to get a little uncomfortable. And you need to recognize that they are working every single day. They're out on the streets protesting and making content and fighting to bring in communism at its most intense, insane form to America under the guise of being Democrats. That's the irony of this, right? This Democratic Society for America or Students for America, whatever it is, this DSA, is a terrible organization. Do you guys not remember how in the 1960s If you were even suspected of being a communist, you were literally thrown into prison. If they thought for a second you were infiltrating or acting on behalf of the Russians, you were done for. And yet now these people are publicly saying the most deranged things. Deranged. We know who Mamdani's dad is. We know who his mom is. We know where the funding is coming from. We know the things he believes in. We know the things he supports. And yet still, there are Jews out there, there are Israelis out there that think that that is not as bad as, I don't know, having a capitalist in power. Everybody's lost the plot on this. Literally lost the plot. And I guess the point of this video is to try and say not just how far we've fallen as a society, but for every person who's feeling a little bit anxious or worried about this to realize that it is upon you to get your hands a little bit dirty and figure out what change needs to happen. Look, if Mamdani does win, obviously there'll be a big exodus from New York and yada yada, and I think things might happen to try and remove him from power. I don't mean eliminating him, I mean, I don't know, revoking his citizenship, etc. But let's say he does come into power. Do you think they're going to stop at New York? Have you seen what's going on in Dearborn? Are you seeing what's happened in Michigan? Do you think they're going to stop there? The answer is no. And the reason they've gotten away with this for the last 10 years, slowly sowing the seeds. The squad comes into power and people are like, oh, this is really bad, but don't do anything about it. The DSA comes into power and people are like, oh, 80,000 ranting lunatics who believe in communism and socialism in America over the values that have allowed those people to even exist and to make money and to be out in the streets not working. That's the kind of thing that just keeps on building and building and building, and we don't respond properly. And so at this point, I think Mamdani is a red herring. I really hope he doesn't win. But if he does win, he's just the beginning of the problem. He's just the start. It doesn't end with him. And therefore, you have to figure out how to move out of your bubble, how to make sure that the people around you, but even people further than that, are not falling for these lies, are not falling for these manipulations, are recognizing and seeing the things that they do have, the things that they do value, and not allowing for these foreign agents to come in and steal that away. In the same way, these Islamists stole the Twin Towers from us, stole that feeling of freedom, stole the feeling of safety, and made us realize that we're up against a proper jihadi threat. That's what Mamdani needs to do. It's an earthquake, the fact that he's even gotten this far. And if he wins, I mean, it is literally out of the realm. But even if we do succeed in beating him, which I don't know if we can, but I think if every person who watches this video goes out and makes sure to convince 100 people, then maybe there's a chance. If we can get 100,000 people, 200,000 people who aren't going to vote before, maybe that can turn things around. I don't know. But the fact that there are so many New Yorkers who think that Mamdani is a better option than Cuomo, who think that having somebody who's literally publicly anti-Jew, pro-terrorist, anti-freedom, pro-socialism, taking your money, all of these things, they think that's somebody who's a worthy candidate because he's young and he has all the buzz lines. That is the real problem that we're up against as a society. And guys, we got to get to work. Thank you for your attention to this matter.